order for Monday, April 17th, 2023. And please rise for our invocation led by Pastor David Hinkle of Tomball Bible Church. And then our pledges to the U.S. and Texas flags will be done by Drew Huffman, who is all dressed up in a suit today. So any of you who comes in a suit, you'll be able to do pledges. Just remember that for future meetings.
Would you please pray with me? Our Heavenly Father, we thank you that each and every one of us in this room have been made in your image. And Lord, because of that, we are to reflect you in kindness and respect and honor. And so, Lord, we pray that those will be the values that mark this evening. Lord, I thank you for this council and the staff that so faithfully serve our city. We ask for your blessing and your protection over them. We also lift up our members of the armed services and those that work in our schools and educate our children. Lord, we ask for your protection and safety over all of our environments that serve the public, especially our schools, Lord. And so, Father, we just ask that you would be glorified in this event tonight and the things shared here. And again, Lord, we ask your blessing on our civic leaders and thank you for all that they do. I pray this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor.
Please join me in the pledges. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we almost have that, John.
Yeah, I think you got it.
At this time is public comments and receipt of petitions. Anyone will be allowed to speak on any matter other than personnel matters and matters under litigation for a length of time not to exceed 3 minutes. No council board discussion or action may take place on these matters until such matters has been placed on the agenda according to the law. Do we have anyone signed up to speak in our 3 minutes?
I don't have anyone signed up for general comments. I do have someone signed up for ISA.
Okay. Is there anyone who would like to come up and speak 3 minutes about any subject you would like? Okay. Would you come forward and say your name and address?
Do you want me to do that now?
Yes.
Or what's the last one?
Well, this is the 3 minutes. There cannot be any interaction.
Oh, yes, I understand that, but it's for the last item, so I didn't know if you wanted to wait till then or if you wanted to.
It's up to you.
I mean, when you get to that item, it's fine for me.
Okay, you
Okay.
can speak now. Okay. Is there anyone else? Then I will close the public comment period. Next item is presentations.
All right, good evening, council. I wanted to come and give you an update real quick just on how the parks master plan is going and what our next steps are. So back in December 19th, I know that was a long time ago, it seems like, but in December 19th, council did approve the master plan with a contractor 4-in-1 who's right here out of Tomball for us to complete our parks and trails system master plan for the city of Tomball. We did a kickoff meeting in January with a contractor, really just to kind of get a gist of our entire park system and kind of what we do and what we support, especially with all of our events. We did a full condition assessment of all of our parks in February. Also in February, council approved the focus group members and of course appointed a couple extras, and that was great. We've had a really good time with the focus group. We've had 2 meetings with them, just go over what our public, what our residents' priorities are for Tomball and all of our parks and trails. And then we had, like I said, we had 2 meetings with them in March and April. And then April, we just wanted to give you an update, and that's what we're here for today. We have our public meeting next week. So next Tuesday is our public meeting for everyone to come and get to have a good time. We're going to have an open house style meeting at the community center, so everybody can come and show us exactly what they like in our parks and what they'd like to see in the future. We did post lots of surveys that's going on right now. So survey signs are out at all our parks, and I hope you saw the sign coming into City Hall today. And then April, June, we'll gather as many surveys as we can with all our residents and our park visitors. May, we'll meet again with the focus group. We'll dial down and kind of all the different survey results on what our residents and our park users are wanting, what they love, what they would like to see different. And of course, your comments also. And then we'll bring you a draft master plan in June, just to make sure we show you what's going on, gather all our feedback, not only from, you, the focus group, and the public, to make sure we're staying on the right track. And then we'll make adjustments to that master plan and bring it for a plan for adoption in July. So just to kind of give you a little gist of just a little bit of insight into the master plan on what we're really looking at. So here's our current parks and our city-owned property. So in the master plan, obviously we'll look at other things other than this, but I know this has been a topic with the focus group. And so I wanted to bring this up on here's where our parks are located right now. And then here's also city-owned property that we have within our limits. And then our inventory of our current and our future trails. And so if you'll look, I know it's a little hard on the screen here, but there's black circles that represent a half mile. That's considered a 10-minute walk. So kind of the national standard is to try to have a really good percentage of all of our residents within a 10-minute walk. So that represents the kind of 10-minute walk circle around our parks. And then also what our trails and sidewalk system is right now, and where we can expand upon our trails and sidewalks. You can kind of see that in the red. I just want to show you examples on kind of what we're looking at in the master plan right now. And then here's our park survey that I talked about. So this is being shared on social media. And like I said, we have all the signs, and we'll have cards to hand out all over the place for people to be able to take our survey. And so really with the entire master plan, we're going to get the public's input. Of course, we'll get city council's input, with a focus group input, and then all that'll get to be put together for a really nice comprehensive master plan for our park system. So our next steps is obviously our community meeting next week, our survey, our draft master plan for the focus group and for council, and then the master plan adoption. That's what I have. So do we have any questions? Just want to make sure you knew what our next steps were for our master plan and where we're at right now.
Thank you. The process looks really good. Everyone has a chance to put their input, citizens, focus group, city, because that's what these parks are here for.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, reports and announcements. Tomball Rotary Fish Fry, April 21st. Annual spring cleanup started today, and then the recycling will be Saturday. So there are flyers out on the website and such as to what you can bring for what. So your recycling is on Saturday, and also other items that you want to get rid of besides paper. And then there's a list of what you can bring this week in order, and that is at the city, the dump site on Rudolph. Okay, great. Tomball Consolidated, well, that's on 22nd. Parks Master Open House, the 25th from 6 to 8. May 4th is our wonderful National Day of Prayer at the Community Center, and Rosalie and Drew, they've done a great job putting that together, and that's going to be that evening from 6 to 7. Please come and invite your pastor, invite your congregations, and spread the word. So thank you. Next item is recognition of Building Department Inspector Christopher Plummer for passing the state plumbing exam. Nathan?
Mayor, Council, I'm excited to be here tonight to recognize Mr. Chris Plummer within our building division, who recently just passed the Texas State plumbing inspector's test. It's not an easy test, but Chris passed it with flying colors. In order for you to be able to sit for this exam, you need the equivalency of at least 500 hours of training or experience in the plumbing industry. Chris is the second inspector under our building official, John McGowan, that has received this accolade. Nolan Kimbrell, who is our assistant building official, received the same honor about a year ago. So Chris, if you'd come forward, please. And just wanted to say we're really proud of you, Chris. And the building department continually strives to become better at what they do and keep our citizens safe. So if we could give Chris an acknowledgement. We don't have his actual certificate at this particular time, so it's coming from the state, but I just wanted you to be recognized.
Yeah.
Take pictures?
Yeah.
Anyone else from?
John wasn't able to come. He went home.
Congratulations. And please go around and let council congratulate you. Right over here.
Yeah.
Congrats.
All I know is that I turn on my faucet.
A lot of hard
water,
work, seems to me.
I am a plumber too.
Good job. Yeah, well, that's right.
Last name.
I know I got it. You were destined.
I was.
Congratulations.
Vacation.
Next item is reports by city staff and members of council about items of community interest on which no action will be taken. Is there any reports? Okay. All right, old business. Next item is to adopt on second reading ordinance number 2023-06. This is not the consent agenda, so is there someone that is going to discuss this? Megan? Surprise.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Ordinance number 2023-06 is the second reading approving the service and assessment plan for Seven Oaks. They are building to the requirements of the development agreement and their plan development.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 2023-06?
Second.
Discussion.
Was this the item that was on last council agenda and it was removed on their request?
Yes, sir.
Can you explain to us why it was removed and now it's back on?
They were in, Megan, you can explain, but they were entertaining changing or proposing some modifications, but ultimately they decided to leave it as is.
Okay. All right. So it's just a matter that they had. Okay. That's why I want to make sure there wouldn't have
There was
any
no
changes. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions or discussion? Let's call for the vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Next item is adopt on second reading ordinance number 2023-08. Megan, is that you again?
Chief Burt
Chief Burt?
or Brandon? I mean, Kat.
Mayor and council, this is the second reading for the tow truck ordinance for the extending the ETJ from 1 mile to 5 miles, as we spoke last council.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 2023-08?
Motion. Second.
Discussion, questions? Okay. Call for the vote?
Motion carries unanimously.
The next item is the new business consent agenda. And there has been a request to remove item number 6 from the consent agenda, just to make it clear to the public exactly what that is. It's a $5 million project. And so we're going to have that removed for discussion, just so everyone will be on the same page of knowing what that is and how the city fits in. So, but on the consent agenda, all matters listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine. They'll be enacted in one motion. There's no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, then we will be removed from the consent agenda. Is there anyone else that would like to remove any items from the consent agenda? Right now we removed item 6, other than item 6. Okay. So is there a motion to approve the consent agendas, item 1 through 5?
Motion, second.
Okay, call for the vote.
Motion carries unanimously for items 1 through 5 on the consent agenda.
Okay. Item number 6 is to approve a contract with Landmark Structures LP for construction of the Grand Parkway Elevated Storage Tank for the ENP project 2021, 10,053, for not to exceed an amount of $5,178,000. Authorize the expenditure of funds therefore, and the city manager to execute the contract. David, these item is included in our fiscal year budget 2022-23, but Drew, would you please explain what this is?
Yeah, good evening, council again. So this is the Grand Parkway Elevated Storage Tank or water tower. So this is in agreement and with the cost sharing agreement, with Lovett Industrial. So our cost to that project is $2,589,000. And so 50% of that cost. So this goes along with the Lovett Industrial agreement at, the Lovett Industrial site at 99 and 249. So all the bids have come in. We have evaluated the water supply, the right size tank, and the contractor. And so I can help answer any questions that we have.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve item number project 1053?
Motion.
Second.
Any more discussion or questions?
Have we decided what we're gonna emblazon it with?
We have not decided what the graphics are going to be. We have met with the consultant for the graphics. I got the 8. Right now we have 8 different options of kind of what it's going to look like, just ideas. Right now there's no graphics to it, just ideas of what the graphics. We will bring those to council to help you make those decisions. Once we won't bring you all 8 because that's probably way too much, but we can probably wade through the 3 or 4 that you'll really like. So
It's just not gonna be David's picture though, right? Okay. Fine.
You said that our portion of it is 2 million?
yes, sir. $2,589,000.
Why are we approving 5 million?
They pay us back.
They
we're-
pay us
yes, sir.
back?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So as we pay the project, so for instance, if we paid $100,000 invoice, we would pay the $100,000 invoice them, and then they pay us back. So
Okay. All right, that's fine. That was kind of weird.
that's correct.
2 million versus 5. There's a little bit of a difference there.
Yes.
Just a small amount.
This is the new water tower that will be up by Lovett Industry 99 and 249.
Yes.
And so if there's any citizens who wants to send a picture, I know you don't want me to announce that, but I'd like to get some citizen input. This is our water tower. What's it going to look like? What's going to be on it? So, and it was negotiations with the city to split the cost with the developer of the new water tower.
Yes.
And thank you. Great job.
Naming rights to the.
Can we put lights like a train is coming through or something every time it turns on?
Council's pleasure.
I didn't mean to open that Pandora's box.
Well, you did a good job of it.
Yeah.
Thank you, David.
Any other questions? I don't know if, can we this time take questions from the audience? No, I'm sorry. So,
They sign up.
no. Okay, no. Sorry, we can't do that at this moment. So, call for the vote. Or did we had a motion first and second? Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay. New business. Next item is a discussion, direction, and possible action regarding legislative items at the 2023 Texas legislative session. Jessica?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to give you a brief update on actions at the legislature. So there are, I think I counted right, 41 days remaining until adjournment of the regular session. What you'll see over the next few weeks is committee pace will pick up significantly as each of the chambers have their own deadlines of when they can take up bills that originated in their chamber. Most of the action at this point will start migrating bills from committees to the floor. So House bills will quickly be moving from House committees to the House floor and Senate bills to the Senate floor. All of the resolutions that council have adopted to date have been delivered to our Tomball delegation, our representative and senator, and any relevant committee if the bill remained actively in a committee. Just to give you some insight based on our legislative update from last week, there is an ongoing battle between the House and the Senate in regards to property tax relief. They have very different ideas of how they're going to accomplish that this year. The House's approach is to lower and put in place an appraisal cap on all properties from 10% to 5% across the board. So including all properties, not just residential properties. And the Senate plans to increase the homestead exemption for school district taxes from $40,000 to $70,000, and also increase the business personal property exemption from $2,500 to $25,000. So these are very different philosophies, and this battle is sort of playing out in a number of ways. If you're reading the headlines of basically any major newspaper in the state, this is probably what you're hearing about, because this is influencing some other legislation that's being proposed. So here's status of the major bills that we've talked about before. HB 2127 and Senate Bill 814 are what we classified as the super preemption bills. The House bill was substituted in committee. That's what that CS stands for before the House bill. That means they made a significant amendment to that bill. The committee substitute passed out of the committee and has now been placed on the major state calendar, which means it's getting ready to go to the floor for debate. The companion Senate bill is still pending in committee, which at this point gives a pretty good indication that the House bill is the one that's going to be moving through the legislative process. Moving on, the House Bill 3538, Senate Bill 175, which is the community censorship bill, which is the bill that says that you as a governing body can't spend money to participate in any type of influential activities at the legislature. The House bill has been referred to House State Affairs. The committee substitute on the Senate side has actually passed the Senate 19-12. And it's already been referred to the House State Affairs Committee. So the House is already taking up the Senate bill. So again, that means that the Senate bill is likely the one that will be moved forward in the process and the one to track moving forward. When you see things like that and the Senate kind of the House picking up the Senate bill, there are likely going to be amendments made on the House side to the Senate bill, which is when it'll go to a conference committee and they'll kind of negotiate with each other on which bill will move forward. House Bill 3921, Senate Bill 1787 is the preemption bill of minimum lot sizes, which basically says you as the city council can't decide what the minimum lot size is in your community. Right now, both the House bill and its companion Senate bill are sitting in their respective committees. They've both been held there for some time. I believe one, at least more than about 2 weeks at this point. There was a lot of pushback in those committees on that bill. So kind of waiting to see which one moves out of committee first to know what the next action will be. Then the last set is 2978-1472, which is a bill that says that accessory dwelling units have to be allowed in any residential zoning district. And they are both pending in committee as well. So there are a lot of bills to track. So where do we get a lot of our information? First and foremost is the Texas Municipal League, which does a great job of keeping council and staff updated on what's going on. They post all of their legislative updates online as well as email. You should be getting an email from them each week. But they also post their testimony. So when TML takes a position and testifies on a bill on behalf of cities, they post that testimony on their website, so you can go view that. And then the other tool is Texas Legislature Online, which is where you can track bills, you can set up your own list and kind of follow along, and you'll get an email notification if the bill makes a movement. There are 9,500 bills currently going through the evaluation process, so it's a great way to just hone in on a few specific bills that you want to track in the process. And I think that's all I have today. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? This is a
Did we
discussion
get any
item.
kind of feedback from any of our representatives on the delivery of the items that we sent them? Have we had any feedback from them?
Yes.
Well, can you bring us up to date on the feedback?
The Tom Oliverson, Sam Harless, several of them. One of the bills that has been pushed up in the calendar committee is the bill on the preemption. And so that is getting, it looks like that's been moved up till tomorrow. Or can you, I know that you looked online and.
Yeah, it's on the state calendar,
Right.
major state calendar, yes.
Right. And so there is discussion on that. He's aware of what's going on with, that we are against that, but there was so much push forward with the trade associations with asset to pass that bill, that bill probably will pass. And then there could be some adjustments when it goes in on the floor of the House. The floor of the Senate or floor of the House? I think it's the
It's
Senate.
going to the House floor.
It's the House floor too. And that is where we need to have some input, but we can't testify anymore. It has to go through our state elected officials. But they did acknowledge and they reached out. So they did acknowledge, but there was a lot more than just us saying no. There were a lot of people that wanted it. It seems to go after some of the items that are for the larger cities that they're doing. And so we have asked to look into a 20 to 50,000 city population exclusion. And hopefully that will be discussed with them, that they could do some amendments to the bill. So.
Is there any way we can formulate something saying that we want that officially
Yes.
brought up so that we can, I mean, we've written these letters, but we need to continue following up.
Yes, and that's, I think we're going to be.
We plan on
discussing that.
drafting a letter on that bill and providing it to Representative Oliverson so that he'll have it for the floor debate.
Mhm. And anything else too that you would like to see. Jessica's doing a great job of staying on top of all
She
this.
absolutely is. It just seems like we keep getting it in the shorts and it's not, it's not advantageous for us. As a bunch of citizens, y'all need to be stomping your feet too. It's not just this council sitting up here. Everybody needs to be stomping their feet because what they're doing is taking away your rights to elect a body that can set up the government you want set up. And by all these things that they're doing, they're coming in, they're taking all that away from us.
And so now we continue, once it gets out of the calendar and it's on the floor, we do have our representative's ear. So that is what, we all need to draft something to that. Discuss. And we can always go up there and sit in the balcony there or sit in the back and so they see us. Being there in Austin helps. And any citizens who would love to do that helps. But they did acknowledge and
Thank you, ma'am.
reach out. Next item, to approve request from the Tomball Rotary Club. Chris Lark.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm here to, on behalf of Tomball Rotary Club, they're looking to get approval for city support and in-kind services for their annual Big Show. That happens, that's going to happen at the depot in downtown on Saturday, October the 14th. Runs from 3 to 9 p.m. Estimated attendance based on previous years of 400 to 500 people. And it's a paid $50 person event that will be fenced in at the depot.
Is there a motion to approve the request from the Tomball Rotary Club?
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? Any questions?
400 to 500 in attendance, $50 a pop. What are our expenses for this taxpayer dollar being used for that amount of people? Is there a return on our investment?
I would have to
Yeah, we've done
look at the
that.
finance for
It was like 6,000.
What's that?
Go ahead.
6,000.
We use about 6 police officers. And then we have citizen volunteers from high schools to help serve food, that. So it's an opportunity for the National Honor Society at Tomball and our cadets to jump in. But the city itself, the biggest lift is probably 6 police officers and Drew for Public Works. Do you have people assigned or no? Yeah, there's 4 to 6 individuals.
Okay. Any other questions? Call for the vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Next item is to authorize the donation of obsolete firefighting nozzles, adapters, various equipment, and uniforms to the East Texas Mutual Aid Association. Chief Joe?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We recently did a cleanup within the station, pulling out a bunch of equipment that has broken, may be able to be used as parts for other departments. It is obsolete equipment that we no longer use, as well as old uniforms that are no longer the same color that we use. When we changed to Got You Covered in Blower uniforms, we went to a dark blue uniform rather than the light blue uniform that you saw before. This allows us to go ahead and donate some of that, which it is no longer being used.
Is there a motion to authorize a donation to East Texas Mutual Aid Association?
So moved. Second.
Discussion? What does the East Texas Mutual Aid Association do with what things they get?
So what they'll receive, they will receive the goods and they'll identify departments that can utilize it. There is a pair of jaws that are actually, it's called a combi tool that we don't use on any truck anymore. They can take that, donate that to another department. They can identify that department for us rather than us going out to the smaller departments. They will be that throughput for us.
Okay, so they are aware of all the other cities and
Yes,
they
ma'am.
help service that. Okay. Thank you. Okay, any other discussion? Let's call for the vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, next item is to approve resolution number 2023-25. Captain?
Yes, ma'am. Mayor and Council. This is for the master fee schedule for the wreckers. The fee schedule has not been updated since 2015 with the rates of fuel increase, maintenance. Currently, the tow fee for incident management when we tow a vehicle is a $120. We're trying to get that moved up to $200. We also have another fee, our drop fee, such as if a vehicle gets in the ditch and needs a tow out of the ditch where they give it back to the customer versus taking it to a tow yard. We're trying to get that improved from $55 to $75. And the third fee is additional service fee. For example, if we have a major scene with a lot of cleanup, cars somewhat mangled that we need help pulling off a tree, a pole or whatever, there's an excess fee that we give them of $75. We're trying to get that increased to $100. And checking with other agencies around us are way above what we are. So therefore we were trying to get something that's close to them, but not above them. So we stay in that fair range right now. For example, Montgomery County, where we get 120 right now, Montgomery County is getting 250 a vehicle per tow, and Harris County has just moved up to 180. So with that being said, we have only 5 record companies on rotation right now. A lot of these companies have been here for well over 10 years and provide a great service, but we would like to try to get the fee raised to keep the good service we have with these record companies on our rotation.
Okay, thank you. And entertain a motion to approve resolution number 2023-25.
So moved. Second.
Discussion.
Brandon?
Yes, sir.
With the fees that you discussed with the tow companies, do they feel as though that's worthwhile for them to stay here in Tomball? and
Yes,
provide the services?
Councilman, we met with them prior to this about 35 days ago, and most of the companies are here with us tonight in the audience, and we roundtabled it here, and we talked about what was fair, and they're perfectly happy with this as we meet in the middle right now. Same thing we did with the ETJ part, sir. So yes, they are very satisfied with what we are proposing here, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? We thank y'all for the service you do. I mean, when we need you, we need you. So let's call for the vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Next item is to appoint a member to the Capitol, to appoint members to the BO Board of Adjustments. Megan? Oh, Nathan.
That's me. No worries. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Nathan Dietrich, Community Development Director. So we're here to appoint members to positions 1 and 3 and the alternate positions 2 and 4 of the Board of Adjustment for 2-year terms expiring March 2nd of 2025. Those members have been called and have accepted to, are willing to be reappointed. And those positions are Yarman Wolf for position number 1 and Billy Hemby. Mr. Hemby wrote in, and if you would indulge me, he just wanted me to read a quick request on his behalf because he wasn't able to come here tonight. So he says, Honorable Mayor and distinguished council members, please let this serve as my request to remain to be the member of the Board of Adjustment. My apologies for not being able to attend tonight. And he has included his previous bio. So sincerely, Billy Hemby. And so the alternate members were alternate number 2, position number 2, Rocky Pilgrim, and also Matthew Williams, which is alternate number 4.
Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the appointment and reappointment of members in position 1 and 3 and alternate position 2 and 4 to the Board of Adjustments for a 2-year term expiring March 2nd, 2025.
Motion. Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I've got a question. I thought there was one of them that it was open, going to be open. It's not.
No, that was filled by Cindy Phillips, I believe is the one that you were thinking of.
I guess so. So there's not an open position then?
No, sir. They're all filled.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, call for the vote. Next item is to
Motion
appoint.
Carries
sorry.
unanimously.
She's trying to get us out here by
I
seven.
see.
Appoint a member to the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee, CPAC. Megan.
Yes, ma'am. Mayor and Council, the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee has had a vacancy in our ETJ position since the resignation of Caitlin McNeely in June of 22. In order to satisfy our requirements based on Texas Local Government Code, a member does need to be in the ETJ and also a member of the development industry, such as a real estate or developer. We did receive a application from Tiffany Fuller, who is a realtor with Hometown Realty. Unfortunately, she was not able to be here tonight. She does satisfy our requirements and staff is recommending the appointment.
Okay. Is there a motion to appoint a member to Capital Improvement Advisory Committee? Tiffany Fuller?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay. Call for the vote?
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay. Next item is discussion and possible direction regarding any changes to the Chapter 18 Environmental Article 4 Noise Ordinance. Nathan?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Nathan Dietrich, Community Development Director. Staff was requested by council to place this on as a discussion item for us to have an opportunity to look over our current ordinance for the nuisance ordinance of specifically for the noise. And so we wanted to get basically an overall feeling from you as council and give staff direction on where, if any, changes need to be made, and gives an opportunity for us to have that discussion. So the objectives of tonight is to discuss our current ordinance and potential changes from council or direction from council, provide overview of our existing ordinance and how we currently monitor compliance and reports of complaints, make recommendations based off of our staff, a review of the ordinance and comparative analysis from other cities, and get input from you if there were any changes if you'd like to see, or we can bring other items back at a later date. So briefly, we can go over our current noise ordinance. Just as some background, it was adopted in 2009. What would seem to be part of that adoption was there was a lot of focus on loud vehicles and associated noise with that. It is mentioned numerous times throughout that ordinance. This ordinance has not been amended at all since its adoption, and we don't have any, we were looking to provide a heat map of recorded violations, but unfortunately we don't have that to provide you at this particular time. Usually if there was a noise complaint and an officer went out, there was immediate response, and the issue went away immediately. So key ordinance elements are that the daytime hours that are called and defined within our noise ordinance are 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. This sets limits of the noise nuisance, and basically the noise is measured by either, as recorded within our ordinance, by an octave band frequency analyzer and also a decibel meter. Basically, it's also prescribed that the decibel meter is calibrated by either a type 1 or type 2 sound level using a weighting scale. Obviously, this is a point to note, is that this is measured at the property line where the complaint was generated. What you'll notice is, in part of our comparative analysis, is that there are other cities that actually measure that sound reading at the property line where the sound is generated. We are also going to talk about the required limits, permits for outdoor sound amplification. Currently, we have a permit that is required for every time you have outdoor sound amplification at any given time within their city limits. We also can walk through our defined affirmative defenses, basically when exceptions are allowed, and then also the penalties that go along with it.
Nathan, before you go on, if you could go back to that slide, please.
Yes, sir.
Measured at property line where the complaint was generated, and you're saying is generated. What's the difference between the was and the is, please? Because you just made that comment.
Okay, basically, so if there was a complaint that could be across the street and down the block, we would take the decibel meter and reading from that person's, the origin of the complaint.
Okay.
And then there are other cities that actually would measure the noise or the decibel reading at the location where it actually is occurring. So if there was, say, for example,
If I complained of something going on 4 doors down, you would measure it from my property
Correct.
versus measuring it from
Their
their
property.
property. Is that what I'm understanding you said?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we were clear. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. So currently, these are our sound levels within our, or what we measure them against within our ordinance. During the residential daytime hours, the max level is of a decibel reading is 65, and the nighttime reading would be 58. And within our commercial standards, it basically states that it's 68, both daytime and nighttime is what is allowed at these locations. Then it goes into what these readings for our octave band frequency analyzer and their associated pressure level volumes. And just for a quick reference, which I included in, is that within our ordinance, it basically says that, just if you were able to read this, that a current, like our conversation right now is the baseline is at 60 decibels. And then heavy car noises or like a heavy traffic volume would be about 85 decibel reading. Next slide, please. So currently we also have amplified music and sound. The current ordinance does not allow for any of this amplification without a permit. There must be a permit. A permit is $10 and can happen twice a month or twice within a 30-day period. And the current settings in this, this is where we do have what we're going to be bringing up an issue with that is that there are existing situations that are currently happening within the city that we do not currently have permits for. There are a number of examples across the city where amplified music is being played or used, and we currently don't have permits for those. Next slide, please. So within here, we did a comparative analysis for Tomball versus some other cities that are fairly similar to us. We kind of went across the board, did Fredericksburg, Marble Falls, Conroe, and there's we did about 9 different cities across the board. So we measured it against what our daytime hours are versus theirs, what their max and mins were for the decibel readings, the method of measurement, where it was actually measured and how it was measured, and utilizing what sort of tools to measure that sound. Is a permit needed for amplified music, and the number of special event permits allowed at those locations. So without going through each and every one of them, but what we can say is that we are fairly in line with a lot of other cities. There are similarities for our ordinance for the city of Tomball with both Conroe, Fredericksburg, but there are some nuanced little changes. As you can see, Fredericksburg, their daytime max is 85. They are a little bit different than we are. They do have outdoor music venues and things of that nature. So it's just something that we can look at and compare to. Next slide, please. So again, we did Marble Falls, Round Rock, and Magnolia. Next slide, please. And then Kemah, Seabrook, and Sugar Land. So what we would like as a part of to come to a conclusion with this is for our discussion today and possible direction is that we wanted to kind of go over what our recommendations or possible recommendations could be, or direction from you guys. And then we wanted to look at what the maximum sound levels would be, what is reasonable when it comes down to that. We wanted to discuss outdoor amplification. If, what are our examples of that? And do we want to have permits for that each and every time? Is there a possible change that could occur? And then considerations for different areas of Tomball, like Old Town mixed use, maybe allowing for some different exceptions for this particular area, possibly, and then versus residential, how close that might be to residential. This just gives an opportunity for us to have that conversation, to see if there were to be any changes from an ordinance that hasn't been looked at in over 10 years. one of the things we first wanted to discuss and what's really brought it to our attention is that how do we actually analyze noise or sound when it comes down to it? And looking at our ordinance, we use a decibel meter, which actually Chief has an example of one right there. Fairly simple to operate. Somebody on staff can do it fairly easily. You just need to follow the instructions that are there. However, when it comes down to an octave band analyzer, we reached out to an acoustic engineer and had them look at our current ordinance and then give us a kind of an assessment. That person unfortunately wasn't able to come tonight. But basically what he recommended at this particular time was that octave band analyzer portion of our ordinance should be stricken from our ordinance. And the reason for that is that not that it doesn't provide helpful information, it's just that it becomes very complicated at the time that you try to use it. Plus, in trying to educate staff and doing it, like first thing that we did was we looked at how much it actually costs. We don't have one in our tool belt at this particular time, and now I realize why, is because they're around anywhere between $6,000 and $9,000 a piece. And what the acoustic engineer stated is that the method in which the data is collected is very, it's difficult to do, let's put it that way. So it would be, after staff looked at that portion of the ordinance, we would make a recommendation for further discussion in potentially removing that if you see fit. So I basically wanted to have an open discussion with you. If you have any questions of me, or was there any direction you could give us if you were interested in having this discussion?
Could you back up to that slide there so we can read it and give an opportunity to read that? And then the one previous to that here in a second. And the one before that, please. Thank you.
We also have people signed up to speak. Okay.
Sure.
So would you like to go ahead and call up the people who had signed up to speak now? And then we can ask questions based on comments from the audience also. Okay. So now we'd like to go ahead, Nathan, if you, because I'd like to hear from Chief Burke too about, there's, one of my questions was that low boom, boom, boom is louder than the, so that sort of thing.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
There's a section in our ordinance currently that discusses that.
Okay, because that resonates a long way, that low boo, boo, boo. But who is it that we have signed up to speak?
Rodney Pasinski.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So that loud boom boom, I don't think reads on that decibel reader these got over there. However,
Give us your name and address, please.
Rodney Posinski, 12215 Zion Road. I have the pleasure of living behind Roxwood Manor. And as Chief can attest, myself and my neighbor who was unable to make it, Paul Garcia, we've had our fair share of the boom, boom, boom. In fact, after spending $3,000 on re-landscaping and my wife setting up her rear patio last night, we couldn't even sit out there and watch a movie on a Sunday evening on our back patio, and I'm over 200 feet away from the venue because the boom, boom, boom vibrates the back glass of my house. So we've called police department numerous times on a non-emergency number, asking to go over. Paul and I both, as well as I'm sure other neighbors around, as I've been told. And I think the problem is that do we even have, and I guess that was one of the questions that I would have, is do we have the proper tools to measure? Because I don't think the decibel meter is picking up on the base as it is. And I'm glad that you guys measure it at the complainant's property line, because I want you to come over and measure it from my back patio, in fact. And then we'll move back to my back fence line and measure it there, because their building sits on the back of their property. So that creates even bigger issues. And keep in mind, this is a newly constructed building with the doors closed last night, and we still couldn't watch a movie on our own back patio. So when they have outdoor weddings, unbelievable. So one, I understand, look, we're in a zoned estate area due to my neighbor deciding to come to you guys and push to get that zone commercial. We end up with that behind us. And so now we have to live with it. Of course, as you all can imagine, it's not only hurt our property values, it's hurt the quality of life as well. So when you start discussing a noise ordinance, we're in line with everybody else that you see. I don't know why we would consider moving it from where it's at, especially if we don't have the proper tools to even measure where we're at. And then the other side of it was I'd invite all of you guys over to my house. I'm happy to cater a dinner and have you on the back patio at the next wedding they have, and let you guys determine whether or not you feel like it has any infringement on your quality of life to have that sitting behind your back fence. So before you make before you make a judgment call on adjustments, I would say go over to your neighbor, have him go ahead and put his speakers over on your fence line. Go ahead and get that decibel meter and get it to where you're within reason of our ordinance, and then invite your friends and family over and try to have a little dinner on the back patio or a cocktail. See how that works out, because that's what we deal with about 4 days a week now, backed up against my fence line. So unfortunately, Paul wasn't able to be here tonight, but I do have permission to speak on his behalf, and hopefully we'll have a chance to visit again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Gretchen Fagan.
Good evening, Gretchen Fagan, 1314 Pine Brook. Just wanted to talk to y'all about the sound ordinance. And just one thing that kind of comes to mind right away is, why is it a noise ordinance? Now the cars, which back in 2009, we didn't have a lot of music going on in this town. A lot of things have changed now. A lot of things that councils have worked towards to get people to come back, to get our kids to come back and raise their families. Your kids live here. I know Mark's yours do. I mean, people want that. They want their kids to come back. One of the things that the younger people like is they want to be able to walk places. They want to be able to go from place to place and sit outside. And so that's some of the challenge that I think that we're going to be looking at is, in our instance, because I didn't want to make it about us, but in our instance, we've been open 6 years and we've had live music every Friday and Saturday night for 6 years. We have karaoke on Sundays for 6 years, and we've had bingo on Thursday nights. And they have a little megaphone so they can call the bingo numbers, and we've never had an issue. And so in that case, and I understand Mr. Pazinski's in a different situation, but if it's not broke, why are we trying to fix something that nobody has had any issue with? And I do know that years ago, back before we had as many places now, because we have a lot of places that play live music now. But sitting at Cisco's one afternoon, and a family walks up with kids. They were brand new and they heard the music. And so they started walking towards Cisco's. Got to Cisco's, realized they didn't have any money because they weren't out to go to dinner, but they were there, to go for a walk with their kids. And of course, Cisco's told them to come on in, grab a couple drinks, and come back tomorrow and pay. So that's kind of the tomball that I think that we're all used to. So with the only 2 per month, right now, just counted the month of April, I have 14 singers that I pay. I have 4 businesses that will be there promoting their businesses to call bingo. So if we stick with the 2, and I can get a permit, but that means that I have to fire 12 of my singers. And most of them are young people from around Tomball. And so we would prefer not to do that. Also, are the speakers on our porch, is that amplified music? So do I need to get a permit every morning before we turn on our music that's just on the porch that nobody can hear anywhere? But technically it is amplified music, and the way the ordinance is written, that also would be not acceptable. And it just kind of like to end with, your mom and pops are what we've tried to grow over all these years. And this is what's attracting them. And when people are at the mom and pop places, that adds to our sales tax, and our city's driven by sales tax. And we all know here that sales tax also reduces what? Our property tax. So it's all very intricate. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that has not signed up to speak that would like to come up and speak for 3 minutes? Name and address, please. Thank you.
Colleen Pye, 207 Florence, Tomball, Texas. So this is what happened today, and I've been up here to speak before, and it just so happened today. I had 2 people that grew up here in Tomball, have moved away to California and North Carolina, and talked about how wonderful Tomball is now. They follow it on Facebook. They want to come back here, and they are so excited about what it is. They just so happen to watch me on Facebook, and we have a Tomball family. And yes, I go to 403 Eats and I sing karaoke, but if you weren't at the Weird Sister on Friday, the whole family was there. And we were there very late. We had amplified music and we just had a good family reunion. And that's how Tomball should be. You go anywhere, you go to Gray's. We have a standing invitation at Gray's to eat with the same people every Tuesday night. So, and music is just part of this culture. And it's amazing. It's a growth of Tomball. And you speak of the average age of 34. I had 2 weeks ago, I had clients that were 25 and 26 going to the VFW square dancing. They're supporting our VFW. That's pretty impressive. So VFW is soon going to be having lots of music events. And are we going to shut them down because of it? I got to tell you, I was out doing my plants yesterday, and I'm usually at karaoke, and realized, oh, at my house I can hear it. Oh, what a joyful sound. And I love hearing Dylan on Sunday afternoon singing. It's pretty impressive. He's a young kid trying to start out. Maybe he's the next Law Lovett. Let's not forget the fame that's come here from Tomball.
Is there anybody else?
Mayor and City Council. My name is Latrell Shannon, 823 Lizzie Lane here in Tomball. Speaking here on behalf of my husband and the residents of the east side of town. Now, we had heard rumors of maybe a live stage band coming to town in our area over there. That's an old area that's been there for years and years and years. We've got older senior citizens over there. If one of these proposed music venues is going to be a live stage band, I don't know if it's going to be higher than what the decibels are that we already have, or if they're going to be at the stage they're at now. We don't have a problem with that. We just don't want next week to wake up and every night or every weekend there's this loud blast party going on over there. So we're just maybe not putting the cart before the horse, but we're just being cautious because some of the residents have registered us that they were concerned. Of course, there's rumors going around, rumors, how they circulate around in a small town. So we're just concerned. We don't mean to stir up anything, but we're concerned about the decibel level, that what it might be, if it's going to change, is it going to be something that we can tolerate with? We're just concerned. Thank you.
Yes.
Al Pye. I live at 207 Florence Street right here in Tomball. So when my wife and I, we tried to get to Tomball 5 years before we actually were able to buy a property and then build on that property. When I grew up, my best friend moved here, 3rd grade. And this thing was, the high school was, well, the elementary school, you know what I mean? And I've watched it grow. I've watched it flourish. And one thing that it did not have back then was music. We stayed in Tomball all the time because they lived down in Stagecoach, and we always came up here a lot. And the music that is played at the venues, all these restaurants outside, if you go to the restaurant owners, they will all tell you that those are their busiest days. Okay. I can see keeping the decibel level down, but most of these are in downtown Tomball or very near downtown Tomball, and there's not a lot of residential areas around there. And I know all the restaurant owners, I know all the managers, and there's just not any or not any that I know of that I've ever talked to them about where there's been an actual problem with the decibel level that's there. Most of it's acoustical, or it's one speaker or two speakers, and they're little speakers. It's not big speakers. So the sound is not carrying very far, but it will hurt businesses if you take that away from them. And one of the things that we want, you know, my son's 27 years old and he wanted to live here in Tomball, but he couldn't afford it. It's pretty expensive to live here. He lives in Spring, but every weekend he's back in Tomball doing things with us or doing things at one of the restaurants. He loves it here. We want our kids to come back here and be here all the time. I love all the people that it attracts. We have people coming from Spring, the Woodlands. Why would you leave the Woodlands to come to Tomball to play? It's because we have a lot to offer. And I just want it to stay that way. That's the only thing. We have a family of 20 people that we meet it's literally friends that we met at these different venues or different restaurants or whatever the case may be. And that all came from just being in Tomball. And we love it. I love the small town feel. And I just want to keep it that way. That's all.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes.
I'm not signed up.
Well, you got to come forward.
Oh, that's fine. I'll
Yeah.
do it. Let's see.
You gotta.
But I'm not signed up. Is that-
No, you're not signed up. You don't have to be. So
So the fact that I
come
would
on
do
up
this
and
without being signed
name and
up-
address.
The fact that I would do this without being signed up tells you how important it is to me and serious it is to me. Okay, I'm Sherry Miker. I live at 222 Southmore Street, Tomball, Texas, 77375. Came here in 82 as a young woman. I'm just a little bit past that now. So I've lived in Tomball, Texas for over 40 years, and I plan to stay here for the rest of my life. Have a home. I'm proud to say I recently paid off, so I have no intention of selling it. Now, to get to this ordinance situation, I have been keeping up with it, following along, talked to some city officials like Chief Burt and City Hall folks. I do have concern about the noise because I do live in a residential area, just not far from downtown, Old Town Tomball. And it has been a concern for a while. I just haven't really said anything because it's been infrequent, meaning festivals. I can hear the festivals, every month. And especially I agree with Mr. Pozinski, I think that's right. When I'm outside, you hear it. You hear the music, you hear the fireworks and all that. And you think, oh, well, it's just this month. It's just a couple of times a year, or once a month. And you tolerate it. Now, that's one thing. And I believe in shopping local. I've done that the whole 40 years I've been here. I've been active in this community, participated in lots of different things. So I have a serious interest in this community. Now, there are changes, and a lot of people are coming back to Tomball, and I think that's fabulous. And a lot of people like myself that are in their 60s that have moved off after retirement. I recently retired. They go elsewhere. Well, I'm not. People said, well, where are you going to go? Are you going to retire someplace fun? I said, well, Tomball is fun. I love Tomball. No, this is my home for the rest of my life. But I am concerned about music, loud music, and that booming music. And I'm a child of the 60s. I used to go to rock concerts. But you know what? There's a lot of residential areas around Old Town Tomball, and they're not just senior citizens. I see a lot of young families coming in, and I think we have to be respectful of the existing communities, new people coming in, show concern and consideration, because a lot of people that will benefit from the loud music and different venues, they don't have to live with it. They're not going to deal with it night after night, day after day. So that is a concern, and I would hope that the city could come to some kind of collaboration or consideration, work with everyone and be considerate before things get out of hand and control. And I agree with the Shannons. I think it's important to be proactive, discuss it, learn about it, ask the questions, and be involved. And so that's what I'm trying to do, because I had not planned on speaking tonight. But after all what I heard, I thought, well, this is a time to do it. And I don't want people saying, well, you should have spoken up when you had the opportunity. But I'm not going anywhere. And if it gets out of hand, and I will be involved with trying to get that stopped in some way, some way productive that will benefit all.
Thank
And I think we can do that. Did I go over 3 minutes?
That was the buzzer.
Those that know me know it's hard for me to say hello in 3 minutes, but thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone else? Okay, we'll continue the discussion. Chief Burt, do you have anything you would like to talk about? I know you've done a lot of work about the boom, boom, booms, and we're not talking about changing, all music ends at 10 o'clock. All amplified music ends at 10 o'clock, correct? That's
The noise, yes.
Yes.
Starts at 10.
Well, and that's under the definition, whether it's pretty noise or, I guess that's the definition of right now that we have in that ordinance. I just wanted to make sure I was understanding what all this, that it was about.
Right.
And that includes the event centers, right? Is that correct? 10 o'clock? 7
Yes.
to 10, everyone?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So
All right.
that could.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. I just had just a couple points to tag on to Nathan Dietrich's presentation, which I thought was robust and covered the lion's share of our mutual concerns about, some of the specificity of our sound ordinances, particularly with regard to an octave band center that is a very expensive piece of equipment that really, I think, other parts of our ordinance are so well written already that would cover that. To Mr. Rodney Pazinski's concern and others that I've talked to in the community that are concerned really about the base, there are 2 points in our ordinance currently that address that, regardless of our use of a sound meter. So I'll read those really quickly so into the record so you understand that. Our ordinance says right now, the operation of any such amplifier in such a manner that bass sounds are plainly audible at a distance of 50 feet from the property line of a property or premise in which the amplification is located shall be presumed to be violative of this section. That's one. Then a second part bolsters that even more. A page later, it says, regardless of the measured decibels, dBA, established in prior subsections, the generator of any sound of such a nature as to cause persons occupying or using any property other than the property upon which the sound is being generated to be aware of sympathetic vibrations or resonance caused by the sound shall also be prima facie evidence of a sound that unreasonably disturbs, injures, or endangers the comfort, repose, health, peace, or safety of the others. So my point is in all this is that I think very clearly our sound ordinance says you can't, that bass is part of it. I don't even need this device. If somebody can hear it from 50 feet away from their property line, and you can see their glass vibrating on their table, that is prima facie, meaning that is the spirit of the code as it is written, that we could, if we so choose, enforce that. So I wanted to be clear on that. I think our ordinance has done a very good job of articulating that. I have not had, we've had a few radio calls, mostly to the non-emergency line, to the police department of certain locations that produce that sound. And generally we try, and law enforcement across the board, except for certain crimes like DWI and domestic violence, we try and get voluntary compliance with our ordinances. And that's that is something I would strongly urge the council to consider when we're called out to a place. But that's really what I wanted to share is this ordinance is rich with a lot of good stuff, some overkill that we probably don't need because of the good verbiage in the ordinance that was this town drafted years ago.
Okay, thank you. Have we had that difficulty enforcing the ordinance as they are now in our city?
Ma'am, when I've been called out in one such example in 2 years, and there's a lot to read in the ordinance. It's pretty long, but it regarded the farmer's market. There was a preacher who was spreading the word, but he was using amplified sound and yelling and disturbing some folks. And our guide in all of these, particularly when it comes to First Amendment, like religious speech, we have to be really, really careful. We don't care essentially what the person is saying, so long as it isn't combative or causing a riot or an anarchy. But if a person is preaching the word, it doesn't matter what we dictate in law enforcement, or what a lawyer would tell us is we dictate time, place, and manner of sound. And time, place, and manner, in other words, time from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. is considered hours of days. Place not on residential property, and then manner in a way that doesn't annoy, provoke, hurt, injure, that type of things. That's what a city does. And so I have had the few times I've personally gone out and engaged a citizen who was having a noise violation. We talked about it, and I achieved voluntary compliance. So,
Thank you.
Hey, Barbara. Yeah, you said we could ask questions now.
Yes, I just have one more.
Okay.
I know that there's been some people reach out to me in subdivisions where their neighbors have gone with for rent by owner or bed and breakfast, and there seems to sometimes have events for weddings, or that music is going on in the subdivision. This ordinance is the same one that controls that.
Yes, ma'am.
And they would have to stop that at 10 o'clock, whatever house they've rented to family affair or whatever it is. And this is the same ordinance that controls that.
Yes, they would have
Okay.
to reduce it to a
Okay.
decibel reading of 58 decibels from
Okay.
the property line where a person is standing. And if we go out there and I can't hear, it's not picking up on a person's property, but I can still hear a throbbing bass, for example, then we can still go and warn first, and then ultimately cite if the violation continues.
Because our subdivisions are subdivisions, and of course, there's a lot of short-term rentals now in different subdivisions. And so that is a concern to the residents there.
Ma'am.
And then Old Town mixed use is mixed use. It's got residential, it's got commercial. So
Right.
can't really favor one over the other.
The ordinance doesn't stipulate commercial. The ordinance stipulates residential and non-residential. And that's really how.
Non-residential.
The presentation talked about commercial. I'll scold him later. No, I'm kidding.
But it's
Not that.
non-residential and residential. Okay.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Yes, sir. She keeps bringing up 10 PM. We still go out before 10 PM too, don't we?
Yeah, well, yes, you do. So if a person,
Like what Rodney's talking about, the wedding venue, that music starts usually at 7 PM, maybe
Right.
it's 8, and it goes to 10. And
Right.
then sometimes they shut it down at 10 because the wedding will be over there. Sometimes they go to midnight. And, that's when I usually hear it. It's when it's from 10 to midnight and everything. And
Right.
so I know when we call you guys out, I know you want to do a warning first, just try to get them
Yes, sir.
compliant. Okay, so like you do this today, and then next week you get called out, and it's a different officer. How do we keep a record of being called out to these things so that they finally you can holler at CAFRO and say, we've got to do something about this?
yes, sir, we keep we keep a nuisance log, running log in our dispatch center. So we have chronic complainer locations or places that we know we're going to get a radio call to, and we could do it that way. That's what our vehicle is to do that. So
So it doesn't matter if it's a different police officer, if he goes out there, then a week later, another police officer comes out there, it'll be where they can see, hey, we were just out here last week and you're
yes,
doing this.
technically, I think knowing my officers and knowing what I always counsel my officers, try and achieve voluntary compliance. But again, our ordinance, some of those things that come up, in our ordinance, it says you can have 2 permits at the same location within a 30-day period.
Yeah, but
So-
I think that needs to be changed.
Okay, and
It's not
I'm,
so much-
yeah.
Excuse me, that's my opinion. But I don't see how you can nowadays keep somebody from having, just like the venue. That means they couldn't have a wedding but every twice a month because that music's outside. A lot of times it's speakers outside, and even, because I've gone by there just to look why it's so loud, and they'll just have the speakers sitting outside and the people will be out there drinking on their veranda, kind of a deal. And so, am I making sense?
Councilman, if I understand you correctly, my police officers could, Tomball's police officers could absolutely cite. They could cite on the first. We don't because it's a bad practice. But yes, we could go back the same night. We could go back 15 minutes later. We can go back 2 weeks, two weeks later. Yes, sir. And we could still cite. And there are a few places in the city, I'm not going to discuss them in open setting, that we know there are continual noise complaints coming out of. And there are other places in the city that I know have live music that I've never received a noise complaint out of. This is a measure of neighbors, of trees, of barriers, of location inside of the city. If I could say this, this doesn't really, our ordinance does not get very nuanced in that regard. And there might be some discussion about that we could make it more nuanced.
Can we hold the venues themselves responsible? Because let's face it, you have a wedding, that's one DJ. You have another wedding, that's a different DJ. You have another wedding, it's another DJ. Is there any way we as council can write the ordinance so that the venue themselves are going to be held responsible for paying any potential fines that may come their way? That way it's understood. You need to be talking to your folks when they come in to rent your venue out, that we've got an ordinance in town. They're very serious about the ordinance here. And that at 10 p.m. things shut down. You can't play your bases. I live four houses from Zion Road. And it is constant that I am getting bass playing vehicles that rattle my entire house, not just the windows, but everything in the house. I feel sorry for those kids because they're going to have ringing in their ears when they get older, just like I do now. But still, we can't hold, if we don't have some way to inform people that you're responsible and be very clear with that, to make sure that this stuff is being kept to a minimum. Y'all's venue, we have to be good neighbors, folks. That's the key. We've got old people, we've got babies, we've got all kinds of situations throughout town. Just have some common courtesy, not to blow people out of their homes with your music. I'm glad you wanted to have a good time. I'm glad you're partying. That's great. But those who don't choose to come to your venue to hear your music, you shouldn't have it forced upon them, especially the boom, boom bass.
Yeah. So 2 comments, sir. The first, to your first point, is a business held responsible rather than an individual DJ. And our ordinance does in fact say, does allow for that, that a person shall not authorize, when it coming to permits, shall not authorize, allow, or otherwise permit the production, reproduction, or amplification. So that's where we would, for example, if there were a venue that had a DJ, we could go to the venue itself, right? And probably be more effective. And then to your second point about bass and vehicles, it actually does a very good job as well addressing bass in vehicles, and we've actually used that as reasonable suspicion to do a stop. But if it is a concern, it is not something I have really, as a chief of police, focused on as a community crime, as a community issue, and I absolutely can. If this is something that a council and a city thinks, hey, we're sick of bass going by on the road, I get it. So it's something we can enforce.
One thing is you can't hear emergency vehicles approaching you when your bass is turned up that loud, and that's a concern of mine. You got a fire truck, ambulance trying to get to somebody to save them or their home or their structure or whatever else, and you're booming music. You don't hear that. You don't hear the sirens. I'm sorry, you just don't. One other thing, there's a place in town, and I'm not going to mention the name of it, but they play music on a speaker out on their patio, not their patio, on the sidewalk of Main Street. And you go by there and you can hear their music all the time. Is it affecting or harming anyone? I don't think so. But at the same time, if we come down on certain things, we have to come down equally across the board on everybody, not just one party, not just one venue. It's got to be carte blanche, or I'll vote against it.
Including city festivals and.
Same thing, sir. It doesn't
Yes.
matter.
No, I'm just asking.
It does not matter to me. If we're going to have an ordinance and we're going to post this out on the citizenry of this town, then yeah, I think the city ought to follow the same stinking rules.
And they close at 10, all the festivals.
Well, there's been some dancing that's gone on until 11:30, 12 o'clock at night that I know of.
At our city festivals, like German Fest?
So loud music.
Chief, I have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
Just to confirm, in our ordinance currently,
Mhm.
it states that we have to use a specific device to measure noise.
It does.
We do not have that piece of equipment, correct?
We have the first part so I don't have.
Do we actually have what's listed in our ordinance?
We have, so no, we don't have an octave band center, as Nathan Dietrich said. We have the first part. I tried to argue that if people are worried about bass, regardless of the measurable dBA, which is what this measures, it measures low and high, it measures a report of a gun or a firecracker, all the way down to rumbling of engines. But there's different factors in this. This meets US standards for sound measuring devices. Our ordinance adds this thing about the octave band center, and we don't meet it. I don't need to meet it for bass issues.
Second question is, you said you keep track of the nuisance calls.
Yes.
Do you happen to know, and then you may not, since I'm just asking this, how many nuisance calls have we had against Boxwood Manor?
I don't know, sir. I did not prepare those numbers, and I can though.
Would you say it's more than your two hands
What time frame are we talking about?
since they've opened?
Yes.
Would you say it's more than 20?
I don't know it well enough for the call.
My question on that, and I'm not picking on Boxwood Manor,
Mhm.
but why do they get a reset every time somebody calls? That's one thing I'd like to know. It seems like, oh, it's a new Saturday night, so if they call, we'll go talk to them again. Why are we giving them a reset? I'm just asking.
It's a fair question. I try to enforce the law without any with bias, without any, I don't look at somebody and say, hey, this person gets a pass or not. This really is it is a continuation of service. You'll have different officers going out to the scene with my direction to make sure we give them an opportunity to turn down their music. That's a filing standard generally in our cities. So those are the issues we have. I think candidly, I could be at the point with that or other businesses that meet a threshold 5 or 6 or 7 times, or it's just so ongoing and invasive that we could cite. Absolutely.
Because I do believe businesses like that can do things inside their building to reduce the amount of sound that leaves their building. But if we're not enforcing our ordinances, they have no financial incentive to do that. And I feel as though we're putting residents in that area in a bad situation, because if we're not enforcing our ordinance, they're still having to listen to that music that they cannot enjoy sitting out in their property. And, whether it's watching a movie, as Mr. Kaczynski just said, or other
Agreed.
things, I feel as though we're letting our residents down. That's just my comment. But I also agree with some of the other things I've said with other businesses in town that have live music, how over the years we've tried to do a number of things to entice people to move to Tomball, to come to Tomball, and restaurants and that having live music has been one of those things that's helped to increase that. And so you know, we've done a lot of good by having live music, but I don't think the live music in some of those areas is a nuisance per se, where we're getting phone calls or reports where it's bothering people.
Right.
Would you agree with that or not?
Yes, sir. In fact, just some of the defenses that that are written into our ordinance, for example, to Councilman Townsend's last comment and to one of yours, the following defense shall apply to any offense established in this article. So a loud noise by spectators and participants of an event, fundraise, festival, fiesta, or concert that was sponsored or co-sponsored by the city. So that really does address we have a market, we have a German fest, we have a Rails and Tails, or something that goes, as provided it shuts down at 10 o'clock at night, then we can do that. But I would again push back that looking at this ordinance with some level of scrutiny, I don't think it is particularly nuanced for a growing city that is growing really internally. We're developing a downtown that is becoming more vibrant and live and making it a destination. It's part of our master plan. It is changing. It's changed in the 2.5 years I've been here. And I think, you know, from this resident's perspective and Chief of Police perspective, in a way that is vibrant and enticing to bring people in. And there is a balance, and I may not have struck that balance particularly well when we go out to the outskirts of the town, or there are certain venues that are chronically being, you know, noisy, and certain residents that are saying, hey, this is happening over and over and over. So I think maybe on one hand, this ordinance could be more nuanced to say, maybe, is there a downtown? Is there something that works in downtown? Is there something that, because we have carved out exceptions, like a city festival, for example. And so maybe there's something like that could be that balance, but also looks to our neighborhoods and says, hey, nonetheless, if somebody is playing a bass, boom, 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 we stop it. They get one warning and then they get a ticket. And I have not made that my battle cry here. But I could see it as a valid criticism of my running the police department.
Yeah, because I mean, I know we're sitting here tonight talking about music, but I can tell you, sitting on my back patio where I live off of Zion, and with the stop signs coming through Tomball Hills, Flowmasters and everything else, my wife's ready to move. Let me tell you, my wife's ready to move. And I've told my wife, I will move. So if that means I have to resign council, that will be the reason why I leave. Because of the noise.
Noise.
Yeah, there's.
The speeding, the screeching of tires, the motorcycles going 150 miles an hour down Zion Road, not paying attention to stuff. Rodney Bazinski can shaking his head up and down. He understands what I'm saying. I think Zion Road needs to become a heavy police presence and shut that crap down, because they're using it as a drag strip.
As does Persimmon. It's a drag strip down Persimmon.
Come down Hudson. He came down and said he got run over.
They've broken out to Oric too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just.
We do have a robust traffic enforcement in this town,
Those
though.
are just things that I want to bring up.
Okay.
So Chief, I just have a couple of questions. So have we had any firm enforcement from this ordinance that has resulted in fines?
I have not. To my recollection, sir, we have not cited somebody in this town for a noise ordinance violation.
And does that include vehicles as well, from which the ordinance was deemed to be developed because of loud vehicles?
I'd have to look at our ticket and vehicles. The vehicle code also has modified exhaust citations that would lump into that, where officers have used that section before they would use a city ordinance, because it can be filed and does well. It inherits, it can in the whole county.
How would an officer in a patrol car deem a loud vehicle other than the ones that come through with the bass, boom? I hear the ones that they're the modern, like Camaros and the stuff like that, that just, when they floorboard it, I mean, it's loud. It's like a Indy 500 race car loud.
Right. So
How do they enforce that?
There's a couple different sections that in our vehicle code that allow for, we can cite for a modified exhaust, or we can cite for, cite or enforce exhibition of speed. If somebody, 2 weeks ago, somebody started rolling coal in the parking lot of I don't know the technical term, but you rev your diesel engine in a way that in a truck that causes a massive cloud of cold, byproduct to come out. Those are things we can enforce. But usually we reserve our tickets for, again, the things that are killing people in our county, which is excessive speed, running stop signs, following too closely, those types of things.
So we really don't know, and there's probably not a lot that have been.
We haven't used our ordinance in policing, and a couple issues with that. These are disturbing the peace ordinances, and one of the core principles of our ordinances is that, and law really, is the peace officers, a police officer's peace cannot be disturbed. I can't say, hey, you're disturbing my peace, so I'm arresting you. It's really got to be a citizen complaint. So those are things that have guided law enforcement across the United States, both municipal, small cities, large cities as well. When somebody makes a complaint, it strengthens our argument to take to a city attorney or to take to a judge and say, hey, this isn't Jeff Burt with a gun and a badge saying I have a problem with this. This is a citizen complaining about this.
So those developers of that loud sound are on the move, and they can be in one place 1 second and miles down the road the next. So in development of this ordinance, because of loud vehicles, I mean, and you say you don't really use the ordinance to clamp down on that, but how is the ordinance doing any good then?
Well, with loud vehicles, I think we potentially use other sections. We go for modified exhaust because it has, first of all, it's a more expensive ticket usually.
Okay.
It's gonna force their hand to get that thing fixed.
So it's
An ordinance
just
is a citation, but this person, if I write them a ticket from the Texas Vehicle Code, it can be a fix-it ticket whereby that person can go get their modified exhaust fixed, prove that they had it fixed, and then proceed from there.
So thank you for those comments. So Nathan, you wanted input into what to do with this ordinance, and I think you've heard some tonight. I think we have a lot of music venues that are here that weren't here in 2009 when this thing was developed. This thing was developed for a totally different reason. And now music's kind of gotten lumped into that. I would certainly be in favor of taking in from the ordinances that I've read in Fredericksburg, which has a much bigger tourism and nightlife activity than Tomball. They've done away with that ordinance or that permit for, amplification. I think that really needs to be looked at and taken out. I think that because I really struggle with the enforcement piece of that.
Yes.
I mean, who's going to enforce two? I mean, who's going around counting, right? So I think that's very difficult to enforce, and I would agree with Councilman Dunnigan on that. And I think we also need to look at the decibel levels. Ours seemed a little low compared to the other cities in some respects. I like Fredericksburg's the way they kind of define daytime, evening, and nighttime. They break it down in those separate time periods, and they have different decibel levels.
That's correct.
For that, because it makes sense. You're going to have a little more noise between 7 PM and 10 PM. And then, you know, we're supposed to shut stuff down at 10 PM. And then they have that, that's when they define it as nighttime, and it goes until 7 AM the next morning. So I think we need a little more structure in those time frames and maybe some leeway in that. And then to the gentleman's comments about the wedding venue, we need, as a city, I think, to address that with the owner and get that under control. Well, regardless of what we do with this, this ordinance, I think we need to write a letter or do something to the owner to make them more respectful to their neighbors.
We do, I think what we should do then is go ahead and give Nathan our comments. So we can come back, we can take this and come back to be discussed.
Yes,
But also to your point, Fredericksburg has a downtown business association that is very strong, but they have very few residents left a block off of their main street. They have expanded their area for venues, for rent by owners, for their, for their growth there. They are not adhering to the residents that are living here. And we have Old Town mixed use that I know that in our zoning, we are going to look at separating maybe some of the mixed use to designate areas that could be the block off like Fredericksburg. You know, we bought Baptist Church and such, but for now, we've got people living 100 feet away from outdoor music venues. And so we have to be cognizant of our residents that live here as well as our businesses. And so I agree, you know, like Sunday, Main Street had Patsy Cline. Ooh, it was really good. Patsy Cline, 4 o'clock. But in the afternoon, when you got out of your car, there was music playing all up down Main Street that was pretty loud. Got, you know, I thought, well, that's kind of nice. It didn't bother anybody, but I'm going, that's probably against the code to do that.
Yes, ma'am.
And it was they shut it off at 4 o'clock. They shut it off at 4 o'clock when you're outside on Main Street. But it was very loud and it was a boom, boom, boom music too. So it's like what you were saying, cars started slowing down, I thought we're gonna have a wreck here because people are looking to see what's going on. We're missing a festival. But it's that sort of thing that is what our vision is trying to be a mini Fredericksburg. But until we get to the point that we can separate our mixed use, we need to be also cognizant of the people who are living here within that area.
I believe we're a little different than Fredericksburg in the fact that Fredericksburg has been a destination spot for many, many, many years. Right. That was decided by the people who lived in Fredericksburg. We have a situation of where we have people living 1 block off of Main Street, all the way up to 8 blocks off of Main Street. We're always going to have to worry about the residents, no matter where we separate mixed use and residential. So I hate to compare us to Fredericksburg that manner, because I don't think that's fair to our citizens who have picked up older homes and made them nice, and who are building nice homes that are older looking in style, trying to come in here and do our city proud. I have seen some postings on Facebook where people have said, you know, it's kind of nice for me to walk out in my backyard on a Saturday or whatever the case may be, is to hear music. It's okay. But now they're so far away. What is it like to the people right next door? You know, those are the kind of things we really have to take into consideration as good stewards of our community, period. I think we need to tell the people over there at Baltimore or whatever they call that place over there, shut it down or we'll shut you down. I mean, it's gotten to that point. I've heard enough complaints, not just from Mr. Krasinski, but from several other people who are fed up, tired with it, can't go to sleep at night. It's ridiculous. We need to tell them enough's enough. You've been warned, you do it again, you're going to get cited. And what does our ordinance say is the penalty for non-compliance? Is there anything in there that says there's a penalty? And if so, what is that?
I'm gonna assume it's a fine not to exceed $2,000 a day.
That's correct.
And that's at the discretion of the judge. Very rarely is a judge gonna immediately drop a $2,000 fine on them, but if they get cited and keep getting cited, he may begin, I don't know, I mean, I can't speak for the judge, but if it continues repeatedly, they're more likely to give them $2,000. If it's just once, it's probably not gonna be $2,000. You know, that's the discretion of the judge.
Do what?
I was gonna say
I'm
something.
done.
Okay. To me, the noise ordinance should stay like it is for as the decibels, because like Gretchen said, there's nobody complaining. So if there's nobody complaining, and there's nobody complaining on downtown, why do we need to lower it? It took Fredericksburg 4 years to get their noise ordinance, and the mayor got sued multiple times. If you go back and read the history of that, the people, like you said, that were down there, they started moving out because they weren't listening to them. It was the people coming in from out of town on Fredericksburg that wanted these venues down there. And so it took them nearly 4 years, I believe, before they ever got that, what I was reading. Isn't that right?
Yeah, it's something like that. It was multiple years for sure.
And so
Yeah.
what they did was they finally wore them down, where they changed the noise ordinance where it could be lower and everything, because the people that lived around it didn't want it. So I don't see changing it. As Gretchen said, no one's complained with her right now. I just don't think we should, like you and I both agree, we shouldn't have that you have to only have 2 a month.
Yeah, that needs to be
that
stated in
needs
my
to be
opinion
changed
as well.
real quick.
But at the same time, I think we need to have something that's in residential areas, like the venue that's behind Mr. Bazinski's home. I think that they need to have stuff put very clearly to them that you've got
That's
neighbors.
enforcement, I agree.
Enforce it to the.
Enforce it.
Well, and the residents on Persimmon and Lizzie.
Exactly. I mean, it's the same thing. It isn't, like I said, when we do something here, folks, I don't talk about one set of people or one location in town. I talk about everybody, but this wedding venue has been a problem with fireworks and noise and this, that, and the other. Folks, have some common courtesy. It's all it is.
And I'll just make one final point, and a lot of this, we get mixed up and tied up with the decibel level. And, you know, you can't talk about the decibel level unless you talk about the physics of sound. And I scrolled out some examples of how the sound degradation over distance occurs. And so I took 3 examples, 120 decibels, which is like a rock band. And this is not including the boom boom, okay? This is the bass, no boom boom. And then went to 100 decibels and then 85, okay? And 85 is synonymous with like a noisy restaurant, a handsaw, something like that. So just for example, at 120 decibels, if you move out 100 feet from that, the decibel level goes down to 80 decibels. If you go to 250 feet, it goes to 72 decibels. And at 500 feet, it's down to 66 decibels. That's at a source of 120. Now, if you do 100, which is kind of like I believe that was like a loud motorcycle, 100 feet is at 60 decibels. And at 250 feet, it's 52 decibels. And then finally, the handsaw, starting at 85 at the source, you go out to 200 feet from that, you're down to 39 decibels. So there is a inverse proportion in degradation of that sound over distance. And so I was glad to hear that we measure at where the sound complaint is coming from and not at the source or at the property line of the source.
I agree.
And so I think that's the fairest way to do it. But realize that, and this kind of surprised me too, is that, you know, because I got like wrapped up in the, boy, these are low decibel numbers. But when you spread that out over a couple hundred feet, it really goes down pretty quickly.
But didn't Chief Burt, you were talking about that our ordinance, that measuring the decibels was not as, I forgot what you said, I'm sorry.
Well, he's talking about the bass. When you cannot,
You know.
with sound, those decibel meters don't pick up bass.
Yeah, and
They
that,
don't.
if you would go ahead, I want to make sure we all understood what you had said about the readings of the decibel, how our ordinance that made having the equipment needing to read the decibel less likely.
No,
Be needed.
okay, so I'm sorry if I wasn't clear, Madam Mayor. Our we do have on our ordinance, it's very specific as Nathan already showed, that there are 3 different decibel readings from 65 decibels during daytime hours. So when I turn this on right now and I put it to the low frequency, so it's not a muffler, it's people talking. I'm talking in microphone at about 3 feet and I'm at 67 decibels, right? That isn't 50 feet away, et cetera. But so this is important. It's important to measure sound. And then 58 decibels during nighttime hours, and then non-residential 68. What I was saying is that in any case where there's the operation of any such sound amplifier, that bass sounds are plainly audible at a distance of 50 feet from the property line or of a property premise, this shall be presumed violative of this section. I don't need this. And then the second section that bolsters that a page later says, regardless of the measurable DPA, that regardless of what this reads, this section, the generator of a sound of such nature as to cause persons occupying or using any property upon which the sound is being generated to be aware of sympathetic vibrations, right? When you can hear that bass, or resonance caused by the sound shall also be prima facie evidence. Shall also be prima facie evidence that a sound unreasonably disturbs. So really, you don't need this because this tool doesn't pick it up. Nathan did more research on the Octave Band Center that is the other topic of our discussion. I have what I need for loud screaming bands, and I have what I need if I get a radio call and there's a bass and you can stand 50 feet away from there or on the person's residence and say, yep, I can hear this. That's a violation without this device, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Is that enough? Is there any other things that we need to tell?
I think we do need to
Nathan?
remove the octave bandwidth device. That's an archaic way. It's very, very, very cumbersome to do and utilize. I think that needs to be pulled out of our ordinance in its entirety. I don't think that's doing us any benefit at all. And I think we need to enforce our ordinances on those who continue to abuse it. I mean, that's just fair. Yeah, that's just fair.
One other question, does this affect churches? Is this churches included? in this?
Well, I mean, any amplified music needs to have an app. Yes, it would, sir.
The church
Are you talking about church bells or?
Church bell can go
Yeah.
for
No.
less than 5 minutes an hour.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about.
She's talking about like Easter services over at the pavilion of First Baptist Church where we have amplified music. We do. I mean, that's a fact.
Now that
If
was,
it's too loud,
we were through by 10 at night.
But what I want to reiterate what the chief said is that there are portions of our ordinance that are defensible, right? So if there are specific dates and times during the year that are, large congregations that, it's about community, then put that in the defensible area. And so then we don't have to necessarily enforce it at that particular
that would
time.
be a good thing to do, in my opinion.
It would be nice to have our city siren that's at the museum working. I used to go off at noon every day, siren. Anybody besides me? Remember, thank you.
No,
I think I was making it up. It was kind of cool.
Does that give you
All
enough?
right, that gives you
Yes,
enough?
you gave me direction. I think we
Thank
can,
you.
we'll definitely come back here in the next month or so and bring you something that you can review.
So Mayor,
Okay.
Mayor and Council, just real quick, because after hearing the different, there's not going to be a one size fits all to be able to do what we all want, I think. So, but I think that a good approach to be is once we do put together some of the proposed changes, we'll schedule a workshop because there's going to be additional discussion because any of these different items that we come up with, and as we go, I know that Jessica's been taking notes and I have been as well, that we'll come up with some other proposed things that can go into it so we can continue to discuss it. But you're absolutely right. A lot of the things that we can enforce right now, we just have to. I can tell you just from past experience, it was more for trying to achieve compliance. This example is too extreme, that we should be more proactive on it. The only flip side to that is that we have to be careful about taking the use of the other side of the property too. And that's what we try to weigh. But with that being said, we definitely will take more proactive on current violators, but also put together a workshop with various to try to address all the different aspects, because I don't believe that one size will fit all. We may have to look at a zoned approach.
I think we just, yeah, and
Yeah.
I would agree with that because our city's changing.
Correct.
And that's why we're looking at redoing zoning. So, and that starts this summer into this.
Sooner. We haven't got the proposal back, but we should be getting it back here within the week, and then we'll start soon
When we get those
thereafter.
proposals back, I would also like to say that those folks who came here tonight in the audience, that they may be able to have an opportunity to look at it as well and let them have input, because there are residents, there are business owners. They should have some kind of input as well.
Absolutely.
So I think that's only fair for everybody, including Mr. Pazinski and the Fagans and Sam and Luttrell, Sherry, whoever.
All right.
Just get some input from our citizenry as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Nathan. Next item is City Council will meet in executive session as authorized by Title 5, Chapter 551 Government Code, the Texas Open Meetings Act, for the following purpose: consultation with the city attorney regarding a matter which attorney's duty requires to be discussed in closed session, deliberations regarding real property, or deliberations regarding security devices. Then we will come back and we will re-adjourn in session, but we will not take any votes. But you're welcome to stay and watch the ending gavel if you'd like. But we are going to not take any votes when we do come back. There's no action. So. pounded into that. All right,
So moved.
thank you.
Second.
Let the record show it is now 8:30 PM and we are now back in session. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, 95 decibels.
Oh, wow.
I thought you broke.